Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to assign a random icon image to each label on the form. If the icons show up in the same cells in every game, it doesn't make the game challenging. So to avoid this, we are going to assign the icons randomly to the label controls on the form. We're going to do this by creating a new method. So let's create a new method. We are going to create the method just underneath here. So where after you've got the public form, where you've got the mouse cursor flashing, this is where we'll create the method. What I'm going to do, I'm going to write the method and just add it onto the code and then explain it just to save a bit of time. I have added the code. So this is the piece of code I added here. All right, this code highlighted. So I'm just going to explain the code to you. This is a private method. That means it can only be accessed by setting methods within the code structure, the methods above. I've given the method a name called assign icon to squares. When you are giving your methods names, it's good to name them relevant as much as possible to the actions you want them to perform. On line 31 here, I've introduced a for each. A for each is known as a loop. So basically, you can use a for each loop anytime you want to perform or do the same action multiple times. In this case, we want to execute the same statement or code for every label on the table layout panel. So what the code is saying is that the first line of the code creates a variable called control that stores each control one at a time while that control has the statement in the loop executed on it. Notice the names icon, label, and control are basically used because they are descriptive, but you can always replace them with names, any names you prefer. So what this assign icon squares method will do, it will iterate. That means it will go through each of the label control in the table layout panel and execute the same statement or code for each of them. These statements or code will pull a random icon from the list that we specified in our previous lecture and add them to the label cell. That's the reason we had two of the same icons, so that randomly they'll be assigned to different cells. So the first line of the code converts the control variable to a label named icon label. All right, so here the control label is named, or the control label is converted to a label named icon label. And next we've got an if statement on line 34. Okay, so what that does, it checks to make sure the conversion worked. If the conversion does work, the statement in the if statement, which is this statement here, this is what's in the if statement. Okay, so if the conversion works, the statement in the if statement will run. So this is what the statement does, this statement there. So what it does, it creates a random number. All right, so the first line of the if statement creates a variable named random number that contains a random number which corresponds to one of the items in the icons list. All right, that's what this is. So this will correspond to one of the icons in the icons list. And we achieve that by using the next method of the random object. All right, which is this one here. The next method returns the random number. We also have the count property of the icons. So we'll use the count property of the icons list to determine the range from which to choose the random number from. The next line of the code, which is this one here, line 37, is used to assign one of the icon list items to the text property of the label. So currently the labels just have a text property of C. So what this line does is going to assign one of the icons in the list of the items to the text property of the label. So the 16 icons we set up in our previous lecture is going to assign each of them randomly to each of the squares in the grid. I have commented out this line here, line 39. I will remove the comment later and explain what that does. On line 40 here, the code on line 40 is used to remove the list of icon that has been added to the form. So if you've already added an icon, this line of code here is used to remove that icon from the form. One good thing about Visual Studio is that if you're not sure what part of the code does, you can always place your mouse over it and it will give you a tooltip. For example, now it's saying that's a local variable. If I click on this again, it tells you this represents a 32-bit signed integer. So it will always give you a clue of what each part of the code does or is. Finally, before we test what we have done so far, we need to, this method that we have created, we need to call the method. We want the method to come into action as soon as the program starts. So the way to do this, we need to add it to just under here after the initialization component, which means the moment the application loads, the method will kick in. So to do that, just copy the name of the method, copy, and just come here, under an initialize component. This code here was generated by Visual Studio. We just place that under there. So what that means is that once the form has in, so by placing it here, it means it will start as soon as the form loads. Okay, it will call the method. So if I save this program now, anytime you see yellow strips, just know that you haven't saved your work. I'll save the work. And if I run the program, you see all the squares should have random icons assigned to them. So let's run the code. I click on start and give it a few minutes. There you go. So you can see all the squares in the grid now have random icons assigned to them. Notice you've got different icons assigned to each label. If I stop this program and run it again, you'll notice that this different icons will be generated. For example, the boss will no longer be here, and this icon here, no smoking sign, will no longer be there. So let's check that out. Stop and run it again. You can see that's changed. The boss is now here. Let's try again. I'll start the program again. And you can see now we've got a bike there. So you get random icons assigned to each of the squares each time. The icons are visible at the moment, so because we've not hidden them. The way it is now, you can't play the game like this because it won't be fun, because you can see the pairs and easily select them. So what we're going to do in the next lecture, we're going to find a way to hide the icons. So that's it for this lecture. In this lecture, we assigned random icon images to each of the squares in our form. Thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.